Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78. The 78 being New York City for today, for now. But my friend that I'm talking to, Ryan Lee West, how are you, sir? From London, right?
That's correct. And I'm very good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You just landed in America about a day ago. You're in New York, getting a very warm welcome by the cyclone, hurricane, whatever leftovers that is pummeling New York City right now with a steady haze of rain. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, I've brought the British weather, I guess.
right. Yeah, so maybe it's a little warmer.
You know what? It's probably colder.
Oh,
Um,
really?
God knows if this is related to climate change, but London seems to be pretty, like almost, uh, it's been consistently 30 degrees or thereabouts for quite some time. So it seems to be changing, possibly climate change. I don't know. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, well,
Could
definitely
be a blip.
something, right?
Yeah, something alarming as usual.
Yeah. But it's your first time in the States since I think you mentioned since 2018 in your North American tour, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So, and you're going to be in Chicago. That's the big thing. You're being, or I mean, outside of what you're doing in New York, obviously, but for Chicago, October 4th at Sleeping Village. Have you ever been to Sleeping Village? It's a cool venue.
I don't think I have actually. No, I mean, I've played, or I mean, I've played a few shows in Chicago, but to be honest, it's been so long since I've played anywhere in America. And I've played many shows over the last 10, 15 years that sometimes the venues kind of blur together in my head.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But I'm super happy to be back doing a tour in North America. Especially because I've made a lot of work really over the last few years, and I think I've got a lot of loyal listeners spread across North America in general. So it'd be good to sort of bring a big show to everyone.
Right, rival councils is what we're talking about. This is the name you go by when you perform at Sleeping Village. For folks who are not familiar with the kind of music you have or that you
Hmm.
perform, I should say, why don't you just enlighten them, if you will, just because Sleeping Village is a perfect spot to soak in the music that you have.
I mean, I've been trying to describe it as it's electronic music. I know that sounds ridiculous, but let's start there. But
Yeah,
with a songwriter's perspective, I think is quite a good way to start describing it because I started playing guitar pretty young. So a lot of my decision making and ideas are kind of informed from a guitarist perspective. So there's a lot of kind of shoegaze, post rock, um, elements going on within the electronic music, but also, typical things within the electronic music sphere like ambience in general, techno, industrial. Um, but yeah, there's a wide spectrum really of light to heavy, which I cover within the palette. And yeah, I guess just a general sense of drama. I'm quite interested in tension and release, like, kind of quintessential things that are explored in music, especially kind of classical music. Building to points of tension and then releasing, and that's also obviously common in techno as well. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are covered there. But it's
yeah,
definitely instrumental electronic music in general.
and it's interesting that you're talking about coming from a guitarist, point of view or that standpoint, which is, I mean, I am not a musician by any means. I mean, I love music though, but from the stories I've heard and the people I've met, typically when you hear of like electronic music, you don't think in terms of coming at it from a guitarist point of view. You think of it in terms of perhaps maybe just having a laptop in front of you with the appropriate gear that you can do it from that way. So that's much different, right, for you to or compared to other electronic artists, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it just adds an element, a certain characteristic to things, and it's not, super unique. There are a lot of electronic artists that do have a background in something first and then make electronic music, and you end up getting this slight difference. And obviously, it's one of those things where it's good and it's bad, because it's equally the same for somebody who only just makes electronic music. They'll bring something quite unique to the game because they'll have this very unconditioned mindset to an extent. So there's this trade-off between having some kind of conditioned thinking about music and then the total freedom of electronic music. But I find, especially when it comes to structure in a piece of music, and this kind of compositional devices that take place in music are coming from me having played and studied thousands of pieces of music before I even made electronic music. Um, so there's, even if it's something simple, there's probably quite some understanding
Mhm.
behind that.
And I was looking at the way, just reading about you, and I noticed that you have these compositions that you kind of write out, uh, like a diagram, if you will, of the music, which is that is something very unique to me. I haven't seen it done quite like that. Can you just describe that process? Just because I think it's fast. It almost looks like, not almost, it is art, but it looks like purposeful art. But there's a lot more behind it, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so this goes back quite a long time, but it isn't very known. But it's often described as graphic scores or graphical scores. But if you look at composers like Stockhausen or Ligeti, um, there's lots of composers, I guess, like kind of experimental or avant-garde composers of the 20th century explored these very beautiful graphic scores because they didn't
Yeah.
want to give notation or couldn't give notation to players in the orchestra. So they would actually create their own systems and their own systems. And obviously anyone can do this. And it's really, but the reason why I did it was kind of to problem solve things. Because, for example, say if you're making a piece of music and you like what you've achieved, but you don't know how to take it forward. I find that if you were to draw what already exists and then start to sketch out, you know, things beyond that, you start to think about musical choices in a different way. And I'm talking in a very simplistic way here. I don't mean there's nothing complicated really. It's just more about refreshing the perspective of what music is, and especially electronic music, because I think of electronic music as being very abstract, like shapes and gestures and color,
For sure.
and versus music with singing and vocals, because sorry, singing and lyrics, because that's obviously much more literal to the human mind. Whereas electronic music for me always seems like abstract imagery in a way. So I
Hmm.
think they're really like interlinked. So it just makes sense. And anyone can try this if they've never done it.
I love that
You could
line.
even you say
It
again,
just
sorry.
made. I said I love that line when you said it just makes sense. I'm very familiar with that in other terms, but I appreciate that line of thinking when you're talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and obviously it's just an opinion, but it's it's the kind of thing where you could do a test where you could take a graphic score, because there are many out there that exist, and you could, as a test, try to make a piece of music, and that's the guideline, and or vice versa. You could try to draw in a geometric way how you think your music exists, and
Hmm.
you might actually notice something within the music that you didn't notice when you're just thinking about it on music terms. I think sometimes it's good to think about art forms in a different way. Obviously, we can think about music in language as well, but I think it's much more natural to think about electronic music in terms of like color, shape, and structure.
Absolutely. I feel you hear certain songs and I can see colors when I hear certain songs. It just reminds me of a color, which is a weird thing to say when people don't, when they're, a casual, maybe music lover, who just, it's a thing that they listen to on their phone. That's not something that really they let themselves get absorbed to. But when I was looking at your work online, specifically are you calling them drawings, diagrams? What do you call them?
Yeah, I mean, technically, you could refer to them as graphic scores.
Graphic
Graphic
scores.
scores. That's kind of like the known term for this. because they are like scores in a way. You know, like how you would have notation as a score, but this is like a different graphic version. Obviously, notation's graphic, but yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds kind of academic. There's an academic side, to it, but I'm not really focusing on the academic side of it. I'm just thinking about it in very playful, you know, simple terms. Um,
it's quite beautiful, to be honest with you, from somebody who doesn't know it at all. You know, like I couldn't even compose. I mean, seeing it that way, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's like a different form of writing music, just using different parts of your brain to write the music, right, and express the music. But
yeah,
I loved it instantly when I saw it because I was like, oh, that's amazing to see. So I think it's fascinating to go about music in that way. It's just using a different part of your brain, and tapping a resource that perhaps would give you something that you never thought of if you thought of it in more of a linear way. Like it's just a so it's really it's beautiful. It's quite beautiful. It's artwork and it's beautiful and it matches the music so well, which is obviously the intent, and that's what people have in store for them on October 4th here at Sleeping Village. And I imagine that if you haven't been, it's a very cool venue. It's intimate in certain parts, and it's got this space in the back that is, I think it's acoustically sound, the space by like engineers from the University of Chicago to make the room just sound absolutely perfect. So I think you'll be excited by this space, which is kind of smack dab right in the middle of a neighborhood. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, I'm really excited for it. Yeah, yeah, we've got a great show that we're going to bring. So that we've been working on for many, many years and improving, and so it's going to be really good.
Yeah. So if folks want information about you or learn and see some of these, what did you say again? They were called
Graphic scores, yeah.
the graphic scores, and to learn about your music and listen to your music. Where should people go?
I mean, a good place would be my website, which is rivalconsoles.net. Um, yeah, Rival Consoles is the artist name. I've been releasing music on Erased Tapes Records for the last 15 years. So there's quite a large body of work that I've been releasing. Um, and the show itself will actually be playing a lot of music from the last 10 years, as well as obviously a lot of current stuff. So it's quite, if people are into the work, it's quite a good overview. The show is quite a good overview of like many different things that go on in that.
That's fantastic. Brian, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time. I know you just got to the States. You're probably a little jet lagged, but you're in New York City. So go out there and enjoy yourself. Chicago has a lot to offer as well. And we'll see you here next week.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.